Thank you. Does the state wish to make an opening statement?
We do, Your Honor.
Go ahead, please.
It was the morning of February 2nd, 2022. Cold, bleak. Mud Island, where the Wolf River meets the Mississippi, was colorless. Shades of gray and brown, except for a small baby cat, so out of place, lying on the riverbank, the only indication of what the defendant, Brandon Isabelle, did mere hours earlier. Danielle Hoyle was 27 years old, and she worked at FedEx. That's where she met the defendant, a meeting that would change the course of her life and so many others forever. They had a brief sexual relationship, and Danielle got pregnant with Kennedy. The defendant then started dating another woman, Artisha Stewart. She also worked at FedEx. To the defendant, she was the perfect woman. He wanted to be with Artisha, and he'd do anything to keep her. Late the night of January 30th of 2022, the defendant received word that Danielle was in labor at Regional 1. He went to the hospital, and during those late night hours and early morning hours, he was texting Artisha. Their relationship had been on the rocks for a while. Artisha didn't want to deal with another child or another baby mama in the mix. And so they were going back and forth. Artisha was talking about ending things, breaking up, and the defendant was trying to convince her to stick with the relationship. In the midst of these text messages, in the wee hours of January 31st, 2022, baby Kennedy Caitlin Hoyle, was born. Later that morning, the defendant met up with Artisha at Mud Island by the river to talk about the relationship, and nothing was resolved. Fast forward to February 1st of 2022. Danielle's released from the hospital with her precious newborn daughter, Kennedy. She takes the baby home to meet her family, and her mother, April Campbell, gets to spend one precious hour with Kennedy. She didn't know that that was the only time she would get to spend with her granddaughter, and the last time that she would see her daughter, Danielle, alive. Danielle left that night in her Chevy Cruze. She had Kennedy in her car seat in the back seat, and she was going to meet the defendant. He said that he had baby clothes for her, and so they met at a Matco on Brooks and Elvis Presley. Somehow, the defendant convinced Danielle to drive down Sedgwick Road where it meets Levi, a desolate, deserted, dark road. Danielle pulled to the side of the road, parked the wrong way. The defendant exited his vehicle, opened the passenger door, and fired 5 shots into Danielle's car, striking her in the face and the head. He dragged her body from the car, leaving her face down in a ditch, so dark that all that could be seen were Danielle's bright pink shoes. He took Kennedy in her car seat from Danielle's car, put her in his Chevy Malibu, and drove away from the scene, leaving Danielle face down, blood gushing from her head in the muddy rainwater. For a while, the defendant drove around with little Kennedy. He eventually made his way back to 8072 Lathbury in Cordova, which is where he lived with his parents. He went inside the house, changed clothes, put his Adidas slides in the trunk of his car, and got back in the Chevy Malibu. Kennedy was still in the car, not even 2 days old. He had one more problem to take care of. He drove to Mud Island. Real-time crime center cameras show his car going up and down, up and down Island Drive until he finally stops at the old boat ramp where the mouth of the Wolf River and the Mississippi meet. He took Kennedy from her car seat, grabbed her by the leg, and threw her into the cold, dark water, not realizing that her little baby cap had fallen from her head and lay resting on the riverbank. He got back into his car, and during this night, he's still texting with Artesia. And his phone, the GPS is on, and it's tracking everywhere he goes. A silent witness to a murderous night. He continues on to Walgreens, where he buys gifts for Artesia. He sits in the parking lot, and he texts Danielle, asking about the baby, knowing that she'll never answer. To cover his tracks. Meanwhile, Officer Cody Sutton with the Memphis Police Department is on routine patrol. He's out of the Rains precinct, patrolling South Memphis, and he drives down Sedgwick Road. He knows the area. It's an area that commonly stolen cars are left. And so when he pulls up, he doesn't think anything of it. He sees a Chevy Cruze parked on the wrong side of the road. It looks like it has a shattered window, so he runs the tag. It's dark and raining. And the tag comes back to Danielle Hoyle. So he sends officers to Danielle's home, thinking they're investigating a stolen vehicle. When they arrive, Danielle's not there. They encounter her mother, April Campbell. April informs the officers that Danielle left earlier that night to see her baby's father, that she had her newborn with her, and they hadn't heard from her and didn't know where she was. Meanwhile, Officer Sutton is still on the scene at Sedgwick. He gets out of his vehicle to take a closer look, and he finds the gruesome discovery of Danielle's body. Now at this point, the Memphis Police Department is starting to realize the gravity of missing Kennedy. Officer Sutton looked around. He found no baby. He found no car seat. Just a bag, a baby bag, with the name Kennedy in the Chevy Cruze to show that she was ever there. A city watch goes out. While this is starting to happen, the defendant has another stop to make. He drives to Walmart on Elvis Presley. He then pulls to the back of the Walmart and drops Kennedy's car seat next to a locked dumpster. And that car seat is later found by a Good Samaritan and Officer Robert Blake. He's still texting with Artesia. She finally relents and says he can come over. He beats her home to 5061 Stacy Road. She pulls up in her Kia Soul, and she can't even make it in her door before the defendant is jumping into her car, telling her that they need to leave. Danielle's family is out looking for him. They want to know where Danielle and the baby are. So Artesia drives him back to 8072 Lackberry in Cordova. That's where the defendant and Artesia Stewart are detained by the Memphis Police Department. Sergeants Wimbush and Boyd, with homicide, began to question the defendant. And through that questioning, it becomes apparent that they need to go to Mud Island. And so a frantic search begins for baby Kennedy on Mud Island. The Braden Dive Team, with divers Hunter Winfrey and Kyle Borland. The Tennessee Wildlife Resource Agency, with Agent Andy Tweed. Numerous MPD officers on the ground, air support, a helicopter, a drone, looking for baby Kennedy. But they didn't find her. All they found was that baby cap on the riverbank. As Sergeant Boyd and Wimbush continued to speak with the defendant, more information came to light. Sergeant Fowler and Officer Cole went to 5061 Stacy Road, Artesia Stewart's home. That's where the defendant had left his car, the white Chevy Malibu. They searched the car, and in the trunk of the vehicle, they found the Adidas slides that the defendant was wearing. Officer Carlisle took the clothing that the defendant was in when he was taken into custody. And he noticed that the defendant was wearing a pair of white socks with what looked to be blood on them. Officer Carlisle, the crime scene, processed both the Adidas slides and those white socks and used a presumptive test, which indicated blood. Those two items were then sent to the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation for DNA testing. Agent Stephen Walzak did the testing on those items and determined that the blood on the socks and the Adidas slides belonged to Danielle Hoyle. Ladies and gentlemen, once you've heard all the proof in this case, the witness accounts, the DNA, the video, once you have heard all the evidence, the state will ask that you find the defendant guilty of each and every count of the indictment.